The homeless woman's scream cut through the Manhattan traffic like a blade. Marcus Thompson slammed his brakes as three men in dark coats cornered her against the brick wall of a closed diner. Rain hammered his windshield, but he could see her clearly under the streetlight, blonde hair matted against her face, torn jacket hanging off one shoulder. "Please, I don't have anything," she gasped, backing against the wall. "You've got the wrong person." The largest man grabbed her wrist. "Sure we do, sweetheart. Boss wants to have a chat." Marcus killed the engine. Every instinct told him to drive away, mind his own business like any smart New Yorker would. But something about her voice made his chest tighten. He'd heard it before, somewhere in the fog of childhood memories. He stepped out into the downpour. "Hey!" The three men turned. The leader, a guy with a scar running from his left ear to his jawline, sized up Marcus's expensive suit and Rolex. "Move along, rich boy. This ain't your problem." "Actually, it is." Marcus pulled out his phone. "NYPD's on speed dial. Want to test how fast they respond in this neighborhood." Scarface weighed his options. The woman was pressed so flat against the brick she might disappear into it. Her eyes met Marcus's, gray like storm clouds, filled with terror but also recognition. That look hit him like electricity. "This ain't over," Scarface muttered. The three men melted into the rain-soaked shadows between buildings. The woman slumped against the wall, shaking. Marcus approached slowly, hands visible. "You hurt?" She shook her head, still catching her breath. Up close, beneath the grime and exhaustion, he could see she was young, maybe mid-20s. There was something refined about her bone structure, like she'd grown up in country clubs, not back alleys. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm Emma." "Marcus." He shrugged off his coat and held it out. "You can't stay out here. They'll come back." Emma stared at the coat like it might bite her. I can't. Look, I've got a place 6 blocks from here. Safe. Warm. You can shower, eat something, figure out your next move." He paused. Those guys weren't random muggers, were they? Her silence was answer enough. Emma. The name felt familiar on his tongue, though he couldn't place why. "Whatever you're running from, at least get out of the rain tonight." She pulled his coat around her shoulders. It swallowed her small frame. "Why are you helping me?" Marcus had asked himself the same question the moment he stepped out of his car. The smart play was calling the police and walking away. But looking at her now, soaked and scared, he felt protective in a way that made no logical sense. Because someone should. 20 minutes later, they stood in the marble lobby of his building. The doorman, Charles, barely blinked at Marcus bringing home a rain-soaked stranger. In 15 years working this job, he'd learned not to ask questions. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. Emma kept glancing at the floor numbers, probably calculating how high up they were going. When the doors opened to his penthouse foyer, she froze. "This is where you live." The apartment stretched before them, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Central Park, furniture that cost more than most people's cars, art pieces he'd inherited from his father. Through her eyes, it probably looked like a museum. "Guest rooms down the hall," he said, trying to sound casual. "Bathrooms attached. I'll find you some clothes." Emma hugged herself tighter. "I should go." "In what?" "That jacket's held together by hope and duct tape." Marcus moved to the kitchen, giving her space. "Coffee? Or something stronger?" She followed hesitantly, bare feet silent on the hardwood. "Coffee's fine." As he worked the espresso machine, Marcus studied her reflection in the window. Emma was examining his living room like she was memorizing it, noting exit routes. Smart girl. But there was something else in her expression, a flicker of familiarity, like she'd seen this place before. "How long have you been on the streets?" he asked. 3 months. The answer came too quickly, like she'd rehearsed it. "And before that?" Emma's reflection went still. "Does it matter?" It shouldn't. But every time she spoke, every gesture she made, triggered memories he couldn't quite grasp. A little girl with blonde pigtails running through his father's office while the adults talked business. The same gray eyes watching him from across a conference room table while their parents argued about property deals. Emma Collins. She spun around so fast she knocked over the sugar bowl. White crystals scattered across the granite counter. "How do you know my last name?" Marcus set down his coffee cup, pieces clicking together in his mind. "Because we've met before." Emma's denial came swift and sharp. "You're mistaken. I've never seen you before tonight." But Marcus caught the tremor in her voice, the way her fingers twisted around the coffee mug handle. The recognition was mutual, even if she wouldn't admit it. "Collins Construction," he said quietly. "Your family owned half the commercial real estate in Charleston 20 years ago. My father did business with yours. My parents died in a car accident when I was 7. The words came out flat, practiced. There was no family business. Marcus let it drop. For now. But as Emma showered and changed into his spare clothes, he pulled out his laptop and searched for Collins Construction. The company had dissolved in 2004 after the deaths of William and Margaret Collins. Their only daughter, Emma Rose Collins, had inherited everything at age 7. The estate had been managed by her uncle Robert until she came of age. By the time Emma emerged from the guest room, wearing his Georgetown sweatshirt and sweatpants rolled up to fit her small frame, Marcus had made his decision. "I have to fly to Chicago tomorrow morning," he said. "Big presentation to the Meridian Group. I'll be gone 3 days." Emma nodded, already calculating her exit strategy. He could practically see the wheels turning. "The doorman has strict instructions not to let anyone up without calling me first," Marcus continued. "You'll be safe here. I can't stay that long. You can stay as long as you need." He handed her a prepaid phone. "My number's programmed in. Charles downstairs will get you whatever you need." Emma stared at the phone like it was a live grenade. "Why are you doing this?" "Because 20 years ago, a little girl with gray eyes used to beat me at checkers every time our parents met for business." Marcus headed toward his bedroom. "Get some sleep, Emma. We'll figure this out when I get back." The next morning, Marcus left at dawn for LaGuardia. Emma watched from the window as his black sedan disappeared into traffic, then waited another hour before moving. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford, no matter how safe this apartment felt. She started in his office, a masculine space with dark wood furniture and law books that looked actually read. The computer was password protected, but the file cabinets weren't locked. Most contained standard business documents, but in the bottom drawer of his desk, she found what she was looking for. Photo albums. Dozens of them, organized by year. Emma's hands shook as she opened the one labeled 1984 to 1990. There they were, images of company barbecues, Christmas parties, business dinners. And there, in a photo dated summer 1989, stood her parents. William Collins had his arm around a tall man with Marcus's dark hair and strong jaw. Margaret Collins was laughing at something the man's wife had said. In the foreground, 2 children played with building blocks, a dark-haired boy of about 8 and a blonde girl in pigtails. Emma traced her finger over her mother's face. She'd forgotten how beautiful Margaret had been, how her eyes crinkled when she laughed. William stood proud and confident, his construction company at its peak. Neither of them knew they had less than 6 months to live. She flipped through more photos. The children appeared in several, always playing together while the adults conducted business. In one, young Marcus was teaching her chess. In another, they were both covered in mud after what looked like an epic backyard battle. The final photo in the sequence stopped her cold. It was dated December 1989, just weeks before her parents died. Both families stood together at what looked like a Christmas party. But her father's smile seemed forced, and David Thompson, Marcus's father, looked grim. In the background, partially obscured by shadows, stood a man she recognized with ice-cold certainty. Uncle Robert. Emma's vision blurred. She'd told Marcus her parents died in an accident, but that wasn't the whole truth. The police had investigated briefly, found no evidence of foul play, and closed the case. But Emma had always wondered why Robert had been so eager to take control of her inheritance, why he'd moved her across the country immediately after the funeral, why he'd forbidden any contact with her parents' old business associates. Now she was sitting in the apartment of one of those associates' sons, and Uncle Robert's men had found her last night. The prepaid phone Marcus had given her rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Emma Rose." Uncle Robert's voice was exactly as she remembered, smooth as honey, cold as winter. "Enjoying your reunion with the Thompson family?" Emma's blood turned to ice. "How did you get this number?" "I have my ways." "Did you really think you could hide from me by playing homeless in New York? Did you think I wouldn't have people watching the Thompson boy? What do you want?" "The same thing I've always wanted. For you to come home where you belong, where I can take proper care of you. I'm not a child anymore, Robert. I know what you did." His laugh was sharp. "You know nothing. But you're about to learn that some family secrets are worth killing for." The line went dead. Emma was already moving, stuffing the few belongings she'd accumulated into a plastic bag. She couldn't stay here. Marcus would return to find his Good Samaritan act had put him in danger, and she wouldn't be responsible for that. At the last second, she remembered the silver bracelet her mother had given her, the only thing of value she'd kept during her months on the streets. She slipped it off her wrist and left it on Marcus's coffee table, next to a hastily scrawled note. "Thank you for everything. Don't look for me. It's safer for both of us." Then Emma Collins disappeared into the maze of Manhattan streets, leaving behind the first place she'd felt safe in 3 months and the man who'd reminded her what trust felt like. She didn't see Marcus's car pulling up to the building as she slipped out the service entrance. He was 2 days early. Marcus found the note first. 3 lines of careful handwriting on his expensive stationery, words that hit him like a physical blow. He crushed the paper in his fist, then smoothed it out and read it again, as if the message might change. The bracelet caught the afternoon light streaming through his windows. It sat on the glass coffee table like an accusation. Delicate silver links formed into an intricate pattern he'd seen before. Marcus picked it up, and the world tilted. A little girl's wrist. Summer barbecue at his family's house in the Hamptons. She'd refused to take it off, even to swim, worried it would slip through the pool drain. "Mom gave it to me," 7-year-old Emma had explained, showing him the tiny engraved roses along each link. "She said it would keep me safe." The memory hit so hard Marcus had to sit down. Emma Collins. Not just any homeless woman he'd helped on impulse, but the daughter of his father's business partner. The girl who'd beaten him at every board game, who'd followed him around like a devoted puppy during those boring adult gatherings. The girl whose parents had died 6 months after that last Christmas party. Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed Charles downstairs. "When did she leave?" "About 20 minutes after you drove away this morning, Mr. Thompson. Used the service elevator." "I'm sorry, sir, but you didn't say to stop her from leaving." 20 minutes. She'd waited just long enough to make sure he was really gone, then vanished back into the city. But why? What had spooked her so badly that she'd run from the first safe haven she'd found in months? He walked through the apartment, looking for clues. In his office, one of the photo albums lay open on his desk. The pictures from 1989, the last year before everything changed. Marcus studied the faces of their parents, looking for answers in expressions frozen in time. His father had never talked about what happened to Collins Construction after William's death. The subject was off limits, like so many things in the Thompson household. But Marcus remembered the phone calls that started coming late at night, his father's voice tight with worry. He remembered overhearing arguments between his parents about that girl and whether they should get involved. Then nothing. The Collins family simply disappeared from their lives. Until last night. Marcus pocketed the bracelet and grabbed his keys. If Emma thought she could disappear again, she'd underestimated how stubborn a Thompson could be. The next 12 hours were a blur of frustration. He drove through every neighborhood where he might find her, checked homeless shelters, showed her photo to anyone who'd look. Nothing. Emma Collins had vanished as completely as she had 20 years ago. By morning, Marcus knew he needed professional help. Sarah Mitchell's office occupied the 3rd floor of a converted warehouse in Queens, a deliberately unglamorous location that kept overhead low and expectations realistic. The sign on her door read, "Mitchell Investigations, Missing Persons a Specialty." Sarah herself was nothing like the private detectives in movies. Mid-40s, practical haircut, clothes that said she'd rather blend into a crowd than stand out. She studied the photo Marcus had printed from his father's album with sharp hazel eyes. "Pretty girl," she said. "How long has she been missing?" "Since yesterday, but I think she's been running from something for months." "Something or someone?" Marcus hesitated. "Someone. 3 men cornered her the night I found her. They knew her name." Sarah leaned back in her chair. "Let me guess. You played hero, scared them off, took her home. Now she's gone, and you want me to find her so you can rescue her again." "It's not like that. It's always like that with guys like you." Sarah's tone wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. Rich boy sees damsel in distress, thinks his money can fix whatever's wrong. Usually ends badly for everyone involved. Marcus set the bracelet on her desk. "We knew each other as children. Her parents died when she was 7. I think whoever killed them is still looking for her." That got Sarah's attention. She picked up the bracelet, examining the craftsmanship. "This is quality work. Custom made, probably in the 80s based on the style." not something a homeless woman would typically keep. Her mother gave it to her. And her mother was? Margaret Collins, wife of William Collins, who owned Collins Construction in Charleston. They died in a car accident in 1990. Sarah was already typing on her computer. Collins Construction, here we go? Dissolved in 2004 after a series of lawsuits. Looks like there were questions about some of their land deals right before the owners died. She paused, reading. Says here the company was inherited by their minor daughter, managed by her uncle Robert Collins until she came of age. What happened to the estate? Liquidated in 2018. All proceeds transferred to interesting. Sarah's eyebrows rose. Emma Rose Collins. But get this, the legal documents show her address as a psychiatric facility in South Carolina. Says she was committed for severe mental illness. Marcus felt cold. That's impossible. I talked to her 2 nights ago. She was scared, not crazy. Maybe. Or maybe Uncle Robert wanted everyone to think she was crazy. Sarah closed the laptop. My rate is $500 a day plus expenses. I'll need a week up front. Marcus was already reaching for his checkbook. How long to find her? In a city of 8 million? Could be days, could be months. But Mr. Thompson? Sarah's expression was serious. If this girl is running from family money and her parents really were murdered, finding her might not be doing her any favors. Sometimes people disappear for good reasons. She left me this bracelet, Marcus said quietly. She could have pawned it, used the money to get out of the city. Instead, she left it for me to find. That's not someone who wants to stay disappeared. Sarah studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I'll start with the shelters in Brooklyn. That's where most people go when they want to hide but can't afford to leave the city. As Marcus walked back to his car, the bracelet felt heavy in his pocket. Emma was out there somewhere, probably scared and alone, while he sat in his penthouse racked with guilt over failures that weren't even his own. But he would find her. And this time, he'd get the whole truth about what happened to her family, even if that truth destroyed everything he thought he knew about his own. 3 months earlier, Charleston, South Carolina. Emma Collins stood in the law office of Hartwell and Associates, staring at documents that proved her entire life had been a lie. The psychiatric facility discharge papers felt like acid in her hands. 21 years old, finally free from the institution that had been her prison since age 16, and the first thing she'd done was hire a lawyer to investigate her family's estate. Your uncle has been drawing a management fee of $50,000 annually, attorney Patricia Hartwell explained, her southern accent crisp with disapproval. Plus expenses for your care, property maintenance, and various business costs. The estate, which was valued at $12 million in 1990, now shows assets of approximately $800,000. Where did the rest go? That's what we need to find out. These records show some questionable land sales, particularly in the years right after your parents' death. Patricia slid another folder across the mahogany desk. I've also found something disturbing about the night your parents died. Emma's hands trembled as she opened the file. Police reports, accident scene photos, witness statements. Her parents' Mercedes had gone off Highway 17 during a thunderstorm, crashed into a ravine. No skid marks. No evidence of mechanical failure. The investigating officer had concluded William Collins fell asleep at the wheel. But look at this, Patricia pointed to a witness statement. A truck driver saw another vehicle following your parents' car closely before the accident. He described it as a dark sedan with South Carolina plates. Why didn't the police investigate? Because the witness changed his story 3 days later. Said he was mistaken about the second car. Patricia's expression was grim. The same day he deposited $5,000 in cash at his bank. Emma felt sick. Robert killed them. I can't prove that. But I can prove he's been systematically draining your inheritance for 20 years. Patricia leaned forward. Emma, if your uncle realizes you're investigating him, you could be in real danger. These aren't just financial crimes. If he killed your parents. The conversation was interrupted by Patricia's assistant rushing in. Miss Hartwell, there's a man here claiming to be Emma's uncle. He's demanding to see her. Through the office's glass panel, Emma saw Robert Collins striding down the hallway. Still tall and distinguished at 58, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing the same expensive suits he'd favored when she was a child. Behind him walked a younger man with cold eyes and a face that belonged in a police lineup. Back door, Patricia whispered urgently. Now. Emma grabbed the files and ran. She heard Robert's voice booming through the reception area as she slipped out the rear exit into the Charleston afternoon heat. Her hands shook as she called a taxi, constantly checking over her shoulder for pursuit. That night, she emptied her bank account, bought a bus ticket to New York, and disappeared. Now, 3 months later, Emma sat on a narrow cot in the Sacred Heart Women's Shelter in Brooklyn, studying the newspaper clipping she'd torn from yesterday's business section. The photo showed Marcus Thompson at some charity gala, black tuxedo, confident smile, arm around a blonde socialite whose name Emma had already forgotten. But she remembered his face perfectly now. The same dark eyes that had watched her with such intensity in his penthouse. The same strong jaw, just mature versions of the features she'd known as a child. Marcus Thompson, heir to Thompson Development, one of Manhattan's most successful real estate firms. You keeping that picture for a reason, honey? Emma looked up to find Dolores Martinez, the shelter's night supervisor, standing beside her bunk. Dolores was in her 50s, a former addict who'd turned her life around and now helped other women do the same. Just reading, Emma said, folding the newspaper. Uh-huh, that boy someone you know. Emma hesitated. In 3 months of careful anonymity, she'd never told anyone her real story. But something about Dolores's kind eyes made her want to trust. We grew up together. Sort of. Our families did business together when we were kids. Before my parents died. Dolores sat on the edge of the cot. Let me guess. Rich boy, poor girl, star-crossed lovers. It's not like that. He helped me a few nights ago. Some men were chasing me, and he scared them off. Emma's voice dropped. I stayed at his place, but I had to leave. It wasn't safe for him. Honey, men like that don't help women like us without wanting something in return. Marcus isn't like that. You sure about that? Because I seen plenty of girls end up worse off after some rich man decided to play savior. Emma wanted to argue, but doubt crept in. How well did she really know Marcus? They'd been children when their families were connected. People changed. Maybe his kindness had been calculated, part of some larger scheme she didn't understand. Her phone buzzed. The prepaid phone Marcus had given her. Unknown number. Emma Collins. Miss Collins, my name is Daniel Cross. I'm a private investigator working for your family. Ice flooded Emma's veins. What family? Your Uncle Robert is very worried about you. He's hired me to bring you home safely. I'm not going anywhere with you. I think you'll reconsider when you hear what I know about your new friend Marcus Thompson. Cross's voice was smooth, professional. Did you know his father was partners with yours right before the accident? Did you know David Thompson was the last person to see your parents alive? Emma's world tilted. That's not true. Business meeting, night of January 15th, 1990. Your parents left Thompson's office around 9 p.m. They were dead by 10:30. Cross paused for effect. Makes you wonder what they discussed, doesn't it? What do you want? Meet me tomorrow night. Pier 47, 10 o'clock. Come alone, and I'll tell you what really happened to your parents. What the Thompson family has been hiding for 20 years. The line went dead. Emma stared at the phone, her hands shaking. Around her, the shelter's night sounds continued. Women coughing, shifting in their sleep, whispering prayers. Normal sounds of people trying to survive another day. But Emma's world had just cracked open again. If Cross was telling the truth, then Marcus's rescue hadn't been random kindness. It had been something much more complicated and much more dangerous. Sarah Mitchell found Emma Collins on her 3rd day of searching. The Sacred Heart Women's Shelter in Brooklyn kept meticulous records, and the night's supervisor Dolores Martinez remembered the blonde girl who read business newspapers and jumped every time a car backfired. She's scared of something, Dolores told Sarah during their brief conversation. Keeps to herself, doesn't use her real name on the sign-in sheet. But she's got manners, education. Not your typical shelter resident. Sarah called Marcus immediately. Found her. Sacred Heart Women's Shelter on Atlantic Avenue. But Mr. Thompson, she's using an alias. Whatever she's running from, she's serious about staying hidden. Marcus was in his car within minutes. The shelter sat between a bodega and a check-cashing place, its modest sign barely visible from the street. Inside, fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows over worn furniture and women who'd learned not to make eye contact with strangers. Dolores Martinez was waiting for him. One look at his expensive suit, and she crossed her arms defensively. You the rich boy Emma mentioned? Where is she? Gone. Left about an hour ago with a suitcase and a scared look. Dolores studied his face. She got a phone call last night. After that, She couldn't sit still. Whatever you people want with her, she's terrified. Marcus felt his world shifting. What people? Don't play dumb. First you show up asking questions. Now some private investigator is calling here looking for her too. Dolores's voice was sharp with suspicion. That girl's been through enough. Leave her alone. What investigator? But Dolores had already turned away, done with the conversation. Marcus pushed through the shelter's front door, scanning the street desperately. Emma could be anywhere in the city by now. She could be on a bus heading for Canada or hiding in another shelter. She could be there, sitting on a bench in the small park across the street, staring at her hands like they held answers to questions she couldn't voice. Her blonde hair caught the afternoon sunlight, and even from 50 feet away, Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders. He crossed the street slowly, not wanting to spook her. Emma. She looked up, and the pain in her gray eyes hit him like a physical blow. You found me. Did you think I wouldn't? I hoped you'd be smart enough to stay away. Emma shifted over on the bench, making room. The gesture was so unconsciously trusting it made his chest ache. How long have you known who I am? Marcus sat beside her, close enough to feel her warmth. Since I found your bracelet. I remembered the barbecues, the Christmas parties. You used to cheat at Monopoly. I did not cheat. You were just bad at managing money. The ghost of a smile crossed her face, then disappeared. Your investigator found me pretty quickly. Sarah's good at her job. Sarah? Emma's voice sharpened. The investigator who called the shelter was named Daniel Cross. Ice ran down Marcus's spine. I don't know anyone named Daniel Cross. He said he was working for my uncle. He knows about your father and mine, about their business relationship. Emma turned to face him fully. Marcus, what happened the night my parents died? The question he'd been dreading since he found the photo album. Marcus had spent 24 hours trying to remember details from a 10-year-old's perspective, piecing together fragments of overheard conversations and his father's mood changes. There was a meeting, he said slowly. January 15th, 1990. Your parents came to our house after dinner. I was supposed to be asleep, but I snuck downstairs to get a glass of water. The memory crystallized as he spoke. They were arguing in my father's study. Your dad was angry about something, waving papers around. My mother made me go back to bed before I could hear more. Emma's face was pale. What kind of papers? I don't know. But the next morning, my father was on the phone with his lawyer. He looked. Marcus searched for the right word. Scared. I'd never seen him scared before. And then my parents died. Emma, whatever my father was involved in, I was just a kid. I didn't know anything about their business. But you know now. Her voice was barely a whisper. You're old enough to access his files, his records. You could find out what really happened. The weight of 20 years pressed down on Marcus. His father had died 5 years ago, taking his secrets with him. But David Thompson had been methodical about record-keeping. If there were answers, they'd be in the house in the Hamptons. Come with me, Marcus said suddenly. What? To my father's house. If there are answers about that night, that's where we'll find them. He turned to face her fully. Emma, I know you're scared. I know you don't trust me completely, but we were friends once. Let me help you. Emma stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus could see the war playing out behind her eyes. Fear versus hope. Suspicion versus the need to finally know the truth. If I go with you and we find out your father was involved in their deaths, then I'll help you get justice. Even if it destroys your family's reputation. My father's been dead for 5 years. His reputation can't hurt him now. Marcus reached out slowly, taking her hand. Her fingers were cold despite the warm afternoon. But the truth might set you free. Emma's breath caught as his thumb traced across her knuckles. The simple touch sent electricity up her arm, and suddenly the space between them felt charged with 20 years of interrupted connection. Marcus. He leaned closer, close enough to see the flecks of blue in her gray eyes. I never forgot you, Emma. Even when I couldn't remember your name, I never forgot how you made me feel. The kiss was inevitable, 20 years in the making. Emma's lips were soft and desperate under his, tasting of coffee and secrets. She kissed him back like she was drowning and he was air, her hands fisting in his shirt to pull him closer. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma's cheeks were flushed. This is crazy. Probably. Marcus rested his forehead against hers. But I'm done pretending I don't want you. Emma's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Touching reunion. Uncle Robert will be so pleased to know where you are. Across the street. A man in a dark suit lowered his camera and smiled. Emma jerked away from Marcus like he'd burned her. The text message glowed on her phone screen, and across the street, the man in the dark suit was already walking away, disappearing into the crowd with practiced ease. "They're watching us," she whispered. "They know we're together." Marcus grabbed for her hand, but she pulled back. "Emma, wait." "No." She stood up so fast the world spun slightly. "This is exactly what they wanted. Get close to you. Make you trust me. Lead them right to both of us." "That's not what happened, isn't it?" Emma's voice rose, drawing stares from passers-by. "You find me on the street the same night they corner me. You take me to your apartment, conveniently disappear for a business trip, then hire an investigator to track me down. And now someone's taking pictures of us together." Marcus rose slowly, hands visible like he was approaching a wild animal. "You think I'm working with them? I think you're David Thompson's son." The words came out bitter, accusatory. "I think your family has been lying about what happened for 20 years, and I think I'm an idiot for believing you actually cared." The hurt that flashed across Marcus's face looked genuine, but Emma couldn't trust her judgment anymore. She'd been wrong about Uncle Robert for 16 years. She'd been wrong about the doctors who'd kept her locked up. How could she trust her ability to read people when everyone she'd ever believed in had betrayed her? "Emma, please. Let me explain." But she was already moving, pushing through the small crowd that had gathered to watch their argument. Emma had learned to disappear quickly during her months on the streets. She ducked into the subway entrance at Atlantic Avenue, using the rush hour crowd as cover. Behind her, she heard Marcus calling her name, but she didn't look back. 2 hours later, Marcus stood in his father's study in the Hamptons house, surrounded by 20 years of carefully organized files. The Victorian mansion felt empty and cold, shadows lengthening across hardwood floors as sunset approached. He'd driven out here on autopilot after losing Emma in the subway, needing answers more than he needed to breathe. David Thompson had been methodical about record-keeping. Business correspondence filled one wall of filing cabinets, legal documents another. But Marcus was looking for something more personal, something his father might have hidden from business associates and family alike. He found it in the safe behind his father's portrait. Marcus had discovered the combination years ago, written in his father's careful handwriting inside an old copy of Great Expectations. The safe contained the usual items, important documents, his mother's jewelry, cash for emergencies. But at the back, wrapped in oiled cloth, was a manila envelope marked Collins, personal. Inside were a dozen letters in his father's handwriting, never sent, dated over the course of 15 years. Marcus sank into the leather chair and began to read. January 20th, 1990, I should have stopped him. God help me. I knew what Robert was planning, and I said nothing. William trusted me, called me his partner, his friend. Margaret made cookies for Marcus and asked about Elizabeth's health. They had no idea that Robert Collins had already decided they were too dangerous to live. Marcus's hands shook as he turned the page. The land deals were just the beginning. Robert had been forging William's signature on contracts for months, selling parcels of Collins' construction property to shell companies he controlled. When William discovered the fraud, Robert panicked. He came to me 3 days before the accident, said William was threatening to go to the police, to ruin everything. "We can't let that happen," Robert said. "Think about what you'll lose if this comes out. Your company, your reputation, your son's future." I thought he meant to buy William's silence or intimidate him into cooperating. I never imagined he meant murder. The next letter was dated a year later. Emma is in Robert's custody now. The sweet little girl who used to play chess with Marcus, reduced to a legal ward because her parents are dead, and I'm too much of a coward to tell the truth. Robert calls sometimes, updates me on her progress. She's not doing well, he says. Traumatized by her parents' death. Acting out. He might need to seek professional help. I know what that means. I know what Robert is capable of, and I'm letting an innocent child pay the price for my silence. Marcus felt sick. His father had known. For 20 years, David Thompson had known that Robert Collins was a murderer and had said nothing. Worse, he'd been complicit in covering it up. The final letter was dated just months before his father's death. Marcus graduated from business school today, summa cum laude, just like his old man. Elizabeth cried during the ceremony, so proud of our boy. But all I could think about was Emma Collins, wherever she is. What might her parents have felt, watching their daughter graduate? What kind of woman might she have become if I'd found the courage to speak 20 years ago? I'm dying. The doctors say 6 months, maybe less. Part of me is relieved. I won't have to carry this weight much longer. But I'm leaving Marcus to inherit my cowardice along with everything else. If Emma Collins is still alive, if she ever comes looking for answers, he'll have to decide whether to repeat my mistakes or find the strength I never had. I pray he's stronger than his father. Marcus let the letters fall to the desk. His father hadn't just been complicit in covering up a murder. He'd known Robert Collins was dangerous and had left Emma in his custody anyway. For 20 years, David Thompson had chosen his own reputation over the safety of a child. His phone rang. Sarah Mitchell. Mr. Thompson, we have a problem. I've been digging into Daniel Cross like you asked. He doesn't exist. No PI license, no business registration, no criminal background. The man who called Emma is using a fake name, which means he's working directly for Robert Collins. Gets worse. I tracked the phone number he used. It's registered to a security company in Charleston that specializes in what they call asset protection and retrieval. Mercenaries, basically. Marcus closed his eyes. How long since Emma disappeared? 4 hours. But Mr. Thompson, there's something else. I accessed traffic cameras near the shelter. A black sedan with South Carolina plates was parked across the street when you two were talking. Same car followed her into the subway. The line went dead. Marcus tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. He tried Emma's phone next, knowing it was futile. The call connected, but instead of Emma's voice, he heard Robert Collins. Hello, Marcus. You've grown up to look just like your father. Where is she? Emma's safe. For now. She's sleeping off a mild sedative in the back of my car, but she'll wake up soon. We're taking a little road trip back to Charleston, where she belongs. Let her go. She's done nothing wrong. Robert's laugh was cold. She's a living witness to 20 years of very profitable business arrangements. Did you really think I'd let her walk away a second time? What do you want? I want what I've always wanted. For everyone to mind their own business and let family handle family matters. The line crackled with static as Robert's car moved farther from the city. Your father was smart enough to stay out of my way. I hope you're equally intelligent. My father was a coward who let you murder innocent people. Your father was a pragmatist who understood that some secrets are worth keeping. Emma Collins died in a tragic car accident 20 years ago, along with her parents. The disturbed young woman causing trouble in New York is just another homeless person who'll disappear without a trace. The call ended. Marcus stared at his phone, his father's confessional letters scattered across the desk. Outside, night was falling over the Hamptons, and somewhere on the roads heading south, Emma was trapped in a car with the man who'd killed her parents. Marcus grabbed his keys and ran for the door. He'd failed Emma once by believing she didn't trust him. He wouldn't fail her again. But as he reached his car, a black SUV pulled into the driveway, blocking his exit. 2 men in dark suits got out, walking toward him with the casual confidence of people who'd done this many times before. Mr. Thompson, the larger man said. Mr. Collins would like a word. The larger man reached inside his jacket, and Marcus saw his death in the casual gesture. But instead of a gun, the man pulled out a phone. Mr. Collins wants to speak with you. Marcus took the phone with steady hands, though his heart hammered against his ribs. Robert, smart boy, your father would be proud. Robert's voice carried the static of highway travel. My associates are going to escort you somewhere quiet where we can have a proper conversation about family loyalty. Where's Emma? Resting comfortably. She'll remain that way as long as you cooperate. The line crackled. Get in the car, Marcus. Don't make this more difficult than necessary. Marcus glanced at the 2 men flanking him. Both were armed. Both looked like they'd perfected violence into an art form. But as he started toward their SUV, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. The larger man moved to take it, but Marcus held up a hand. Business call. I need to answer or people will start looking for me. The man hesitated, then nodded. Marcus hit accept. Mr. Thompson? Sarah Mitchell's voice was tight with urgency. Don't react to what I'm saying. Just listen. I'm in position with a clear shot on both men. When I say go, dive behind your car. Marcus kept his expression neutral. Yes, this is Marcus Thompson. There's a rifle trained on the man to your left. I followed the GPS tracker I planted in your car. Professional habit. Sarah's voice was steady as a surgeon's. 3 seconds. Get ready. I understand completely. Marcus said into the phone. Go. Marcus dove behind his Porsche as Sarah's rifle cracked from somewhere in the tree line. The man on his left spun and dropped, clutching his shoulder. His partner drew his weapon, scanning for the shooter, but Sarah's second shot shattered the SUV's front windshield, sending him scrambling for cover. Move. Sarah's voice carried across the driveway. Toward the house. Marcus sprinted for the front door as both men returned fire, their shots splintering wood from the doorframe. He fumbled with his keys, hands shaking from adrenaline, then threw himself inside and slammed the door. Sarah emerged from the woods at a run, tactical rifle in her hands, moving like she'd done this before. She reached the house as the wounded man tried to get his partner back on his feet. Former Marine sniper, she called to Marcus through the door. 2 tours in Afghanistan. These amateurs don't scare me. The unwounded man helped his partner into the SUV and they roared out of the driveway, leaving tire tracks on the manicured lawn. Sarah waited until they disappeared before lowering her weapon. Why didn't you kill them? Marcus asked as he led her inside. Because we need them to lead us to Emma. Sarah slung the rifle over her shoulder. I put a tracker on their car while they were distracted. Military grade, they'll never find it. Marcus stared at her. You're not just a private investigator. Former military intelligence. I specialize in cases the police can't handle. Sarah moved to his father's study, examining the scattered letters. Found something interesting, I see. My father knew everything. He was an accessory to murder. Marcus's voice was bitter. Emma was right not to trust me. Emma was scared and confused. There's a difference. Sarah picked up one of the letters, scanning it quickly. This is good. Admissible evidence that Robert Collins orchestrated the deaths. But it won't matter if we can't keep Emma alive long enough to testify. Marcus's laptop chimed with an incoming email. The subject line read, Family Reunion. The message contained a single line of text and a video attachment. Proof of life. You have 2 hours. The video showed Emma tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Her face was pale but defiant, gray eyes blazing with anger rather than fear. Behind her stood Robert Collins, older now, but still carrying himself with the arrogant confidence Marcus remembered from childhood gatherings. Hello, Marcus, Robert said to the camera. As you can see, Emma is unharmed. She'll remain that way if you follow instructions exactly. Come alone to the coordinates I'm sending you. Bring David's letters. We'll discuss terms for her release. The video cut to Emma. Marcus, don't trust him. He killed my parents, and he'll kill us both. Don't. Robert's hand appeared in frame, striking her across the face. The video ended. Marcus was moving before conscious thought kicked in, grabbing his keys, his phone, anything that might be useful. Sarah caught his arm. That's exactly what he wants. You walk in there alone, you're both dead. I can't just leave her. We're not leaving her. We're going to get her back. Sarah pulled out her phone, fingers flying over the screen. The tracker shows they're at a warehouse complex in Queens. Industrial area, minimal security, perfect for what he's planning. Which is, kill you both, make it look like a murder-suicide. Tragic story. Traumatized heiress kills the son of her parents' business partner, then takes her own life. Case closed. Marcus felt sick. How do we stop him? Sarah was already in motion, checking her weapons, gathering equipment from a tactical bag Marcus hadn't noticed she'd brought. Robert's got maybe 4 men total, including the 2 wounded idiots who just left. He's arrogant, thinks his money makes him untouchable, but he's not a soldier. And you are. I am. And so are you now. Sarah handed him a pistol. Can you shoot? Marcus took the weapon, feeling its weight. My father took me hunting. Deer don't shoot back. But the principle's the same. Don't hesitate. Don't think. Just point and pull the trigger. Sarah slung her rifle across her back. We go in quiet. Extract Emma. Neutralize Robert and his people. Military precision. As they walked toward Sarah's car, Marcus's phone buzzed with the promised coordinates. The warehouse was in Long Island City, a 20-minute drive in current traffic. Sarah, Marcus said as she started the engine. Why are you helping me? This isn't what I hired you for. Sarah was quiet for a moment, eyes focused on the road ahead. My sister disappeared when she was 19. Involved with the wrong man, got in over her head. I was overseas when it happened, couldn't get back in time to help. Police found her body 3 weeks later. I'm sorry. Every case I take, every missing person I find, It's a chance to save someone else's sister. Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Emma Collins isn't dying on my watch. The warehouse district sprawled before them as they approached, concrete and steel monuments to industrial ambition. Most were abandoned now, casualties of changing economics and shifting trade patterns. Perfect place for someone to disappear forever. Sarah parked 3 blocks away, and they approached on foot. The tracker led them to a 4-story building with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. A single black sedan sat in the parking lot, engine still warm. 2 entries, Sarah whispered, studying the building. Front and a loading dock on the east side. I'll take the dock, create a distraction. You go through the front, find Emma. What about Robert? Leave him to me. Sarah's smile was cold as winter. Some people need killing, and I'm very good at my job. As they split up, Marcus thought about Emma tied to a chair, defiant even in captivity. 20 years ago, she'd been a little girl whose world had been destroyed by Robert Collins's greed. Tonight, one way or another, that story would end. Marcus checked his weapon one final time and headed for the warehouse entrance. Time to find out if he was his father's son or something better. The warehouse entrance hung open like a broken jaw. Marcus stepped through, weapon drawn, every nerve ending screaming warnings. The interior stretched before him. Cavernous space broken by support pillars and abandoned machinery, shadows thick enough to hide an army. Emma's voice echoed from somewhere deep in the building, strong despite her circumstances. You're wasting your time, Robert. I'll never sign those papers. Family loyalty is such a beautiful thing, Robert's voice replied, cultured southern accent carrying clearly in the empty space. Your parents had the same stubborn streak. Look how well that served them. Marcus moved toward the voices, using the pillars for cover. Ahead, fluorescent lights created a harsh circle of illumination where Robert had set up his interrogation. Emma sat tied to a metal chair, her face showing a bruise from where he'd struck her, but her posture remained defiant. Robert circled her like a predator, holding a thick folder of legal documents. 2 men flanked him, not the pair from Marcus's house, but fresh muscle with dead eyes and easy access to their weapons. Sign the papers, and this ends peacefully, Robert continued. You disappear, tragic suicide brought on by years of mental illness. I maintain control of the Collins estate, and everyone wins. Everyone except my parents, who you murdered. Robert's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the cold killer beneath the gentleman's facade. Your parents were idealistic fools who would have destroyed everything our families built. William was going to expose 20 years of profitable arrangements over some moral principles. I couldn't allow that. So you killed them and stole their daughter's inheritance. I preserved the family legacy. Robert's voice hardened. Something your friend Marcus is about to learn the importance of. From across the warehouse came the sound of breaking glass. Sarah's distraction. Robert's men immediately tensed, hands moving toward their weapons, but Robert raised a hand to stop them. Right on schedule. Marcus Thompson, so predictable, just like his father. Robert called out toward the shadows. Come out, boy. Let's finish what David started 20 years ago. Marcus stepped into the light, weapon trained on Robert's chest. Let her go. Or what? You'll shoot me? Robert's laugh was genuinely amused. You're David Thompson's son. You don't have the spine for violence. Try me. I don't think I need to. Robert nodded to his men, who drew their weapons with practiced efficiency. Drop the gun, Marcus. This doesn't have to end with both of you dead. Marcus kept his weapon steady, though the odds were impossibly bad. 2 trained killers against 1 man who'd never fired a shot in anger. But Emma was watching him with those gray eyes, and he saw something there that gave him strength. Trust. You made one mistake, Robert, Marcus said. You assumed I'd come alone. The first gunshot came from the building's upper level, Sarah's rifle speaking with deadly precision. One of Robert's men spun and fell, his weapon clattering across concrete. The second man turned toward the muzzle flash, giving Marcus the opening he needed. Marcus's shot took the man's center mass, dropping him instantly. The sound echoed like thunder in the enclosed space, leaving only Marcus, Emma, and Robert Collins standing in the harsh circle of light. Robert had drawn his own weapon, but instead of pointing it at Marcus, he pressed the barrel against Emma's temple. How touching. The hero saves the day. Robert's voice was steady, but sweat beaded on his forehead. Drop your weapon, Marcus. or I paint the wall with her brains. Marcus lowered his pistol, mind racing. Sarah was repositioning somewhere above, but she couldn't take the shot without risking Emma. They needed Robert away from her, needed him to make a mistake. You're finished, Robert. Even if you kill us both, people know the truth now. My father's letters, Sarah's investigation, the evidence will come out. Evidence can be destroyed. Witnesses can disappear. Robert's grip tightened on his weapon. I've been cleaning up messes for 20 years. This is just another one. Like cleaning up my parents? Your parents chose their fate when they threatened to expose me, just like you're choosing yours now. Robert's finger tightened on the trigger. Goodbye, Emma Rose. The shot came from directly overhead. Sarah had found her angle, and her bullet took Robert Collins through the shoulder, spinning him away from Emma's chair. His weapon flew from nerveless fingers as he crashed into a support pillar. Marcus was moving before Robert hit the ground, tackling him to prevent any chance of reaching another weapon. But Robert was finished, 58 years old, bleeding from a shattered shoulder, all the fight gone out of him. Emma struggled against her restraints, and Marcus quickly cut her free with a knife from one of the fallen men. She threw herself into his arms, shaking with reaction and relief. It's over, Marcus whispered against her hair. It's finally over. Sarah descended from the upper level, rifle slung casually across her shoulder, already on her phone with emergency services. Police and ambulance en route. Robert Collins is going to live to stand trial, which is more mercy than he showed anyone else. Robert groaned from where he lay against the pillar, one hand pressed to his wounded shoulder. You have no idea what you've done. The Collins estate, the business relationships, everything will collapse. Good, Emma said, not moving from Marcus's arms. Let it all burn. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the veranda of the restored Collins family mansion in Charleston, watching Emma tend to the garden her mother had planted 30 years ago. The house had been in Robert's possession since Emma's commitment to the psychiatric facility, but legal proceedings had returned it to its rightful owner along with what remained of the family fortune. Robert Collins was serving life without parole for the murders of William and Margaret Collins, plus attempted murder charges for his actions against Emma and Marcus. The psychiatric facility that had held Emma for 5 years was under federal investigation, and several staff members faced criminal charges for their role in keeping her imprisoned. The foundation papers are ready for your signature, Sarah called from the doorway. She'd stayed on as head of security for the newly created Collins-Thompson Foundation, dedicated to helping homeless individuals and investigating cold cases involving missing persons. Marcus walked over to where Emma knelt among the roses, dirt under her fingernails, genuine smile lighting her face for the first time since he'd known her. She looked up as his shadow fell across her work. Your father would be proud, she said softly, using the Thompson money to undo the damage his silence caused. Our money, Marcus corrected, pulling her to her feet. Mrs. Thompson. They'd married 3 weeks ago in this same garden, surrounded by friends and the few family members who'd stood by them through the scandal. Emma wore her mother's wedding dress, altered to fit, and carried roses from Margaret Collins's garden. I still can't believe you kept your father's name for the foundation, Emma said, brushing dirt from her hands. David Thompson made mistakes, but in the end, he left us the evidence we needed to find justice. That counts for something. Marcus pulled her close, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him. Besides, Collins-Thompson has a nice ring to it. Emma laughed, the sound carrying across the garden like music. What would 7-year-old Emma and Marcus think about all this? I think they'd be amazed we finally figured out how to beat you at checkers. You still can't beat me at checkers. Maybe not, but I won the only game that mattered. As the sun set over Charleston, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Marcus Thompson and Emma Collins-Thompson stood together in the garden where their story had begun, finally free to write their own ending. 2 years later, the Collins-Thompson Foundation occupied a converted warehouse in downtown Charleston, its glass walls and modern design a stark contrast to the historic mansions surrounding it. Inside, the bustle of purposeful activity filled every corner as case workers, investigators, and volunteers worked to locate missing persons and provide support for the homeless. Emma stood before a wall of photographs, faces of people they'd helped find, families reunited, cold cases solved. Each image represented a life touched by their work, a story with a happier ending than her own might have had. The Miller family wants to name their new baby after you, Sarah said, approaching with a steaming cup of coffee. Little Emma Miller. Has a nice sound. How many is that now? 7 babies named Emma, for named Marcus, plus 3 dogs and a particularly stubborn cat. Sarah grinned. You two are becoming legends. Emma accepted the coffee gratefully. At 8 months pregnant, she developed an almost supernatural need for caffeine that her doctor reluctantly allowed in small doses. Any word on the Peterson case? Found him yesterday, living under an assumed name in Seattle, working as a mechanic. Turns out his ex-wife was right. He didn't abandon the family voluntarily. Someone was threatening his kids if he didn't disappear. Custody battle? Worse. The ex-wife's new boyfriend had connections to some very unpleasant people. We've turned it over to the FBI. Sarah's expression darkened. Some cases remind you why we do this work. The foundation had grown beyond their wildest expectations. What started as a way to heal their own wounds had become a national resource for families dealing with missing persons cases. They worked closely with law enforcement, but their private status allowed them to pursue leads and use methods that official channels couldn't. Marcus emerged from the conference room where he'd been meeting with potential donors, loosening his tie with visible relief. Tell me we don't have any more presentations today. Just one more, Emma said, hiding her smile. The most important one. Which one? Emma pulled out her phone, showing him the ultrasound image she'd received that morning. Dr. Patterson called. She's 90% certain it's a girl. Marcus's face went through several expressions: surprise, joy, panic, then joy again. He crossed the room in 3 quick strides, pulling Emma into his arms with the careful gentleness he'd perfected over the past months. A daughter, he whispered against her hair. Margaret Rose Thompson, Emma said softly. If that's okay with you. Marcus pulled back to look at her, eyes bright with unshed tears. Your mother would be honored. I think she would have liked knowing her granddaughter will grow up loved and safe. Emma placed her hand over his where it rested on her rounded stomach. No family secrets, no lies, no one trying to steal her childhood. Just parents who love her more than life itself. Sarah cleared her throat diplomatically. As touching as this moment is, we have actual work to do. The Henley case files just came in from Baltimore, and there's something you both need to see. They followed her to the main conference room, where case files covered every available surface. Sarah pulled out a folder marked Henley, Patricia, missing since 2019. 23 years old, disappeared from a Baltimore shelter 3 years ago. Police think she got mixed up with the wrong crowd, but her sister hired us because she doesn't buy it. Sarah spread out photographs and documents. Patricia was a graduate student in social work, volunteering at the shelter. No history of drug use, no dangerous relationships. Emma studied the missing woman's photograph. Young, blonde, bright smile that reminded her painfully of herself at that age. What makes her sister think this isn't what it appears? Because Patricia called her the night before she disappeared. Said she'd discovered something at the shelter, something that could help a lot of people if she could prove it. Sarah pulled out a map of Baltimore marked with locations. 3 other social workers have gone missing from that area in the past 5 years. All young women, all working with vulnerable populations. Marcus frowned. Pattern predator? Maybe. Or maybe someone doesn't want certain social workers looking too closely at certain operations. Sarah's expression was grim. Human trafficking, forced labor, missing persons being sold rather than helped. The possibilities are ugly. Emma felt the familiar fire ignite in her chest, the same driving need for justice that had sustained her through the darkest moments of her own ordeal. When do we leave for Baltimore? We don't, Marcus said firmly. You're 8 months pregnant, Emma. You're not chasing predators through Baltimore. I'm pregnant, not helpless. You're also the target of death threats from Robert Collins's former associates. You're carrying our daughter, and you promised me after the Miami case that you'd be more careful. Emma wanted to argue, but the truth was that pregnancy had slowed her down more than she'd expected. The foundation's work was important, but so was the life growing inside her. Fine, but I want constant updates. Deal, Sarah said. I'll take a team to Baltimore, set up surveillance, see what we can learn. If there's a trafficking operation using homeless shelters as hunting grounds, we'll expose it. As Sarah gathered her files and headed out to assemble her team, Emma and Marcus found themselves alone in the conference room. Through the windows, Charleston spread before them, a city where their families had once done business, where secrets had been buried for decades, where justice had finally prevailed. Do you ever wonder what our lives would have been like if none of this had happened? Emma asked. If Robert hadn't killed my parents, if your father had spoken up, if we'd grown up together normally? Marcus considered the question seriously. I think we would have found each other eventually. Maybe not as dramatically, but the connection was always there. He took her hand, thumb tracing over her wedding ring. Though I have to admit, I prefer the version where you can beat up trained assassins. I never beat up any assassins. You headbutt that guy in Miami hard enough to break his nose. He was trying to kidnap a 12-year-old girl. That's different. Marcus laughed, pulling her closer. I love your moral flexibility. I love that you think my moral flexibility is attractive rather than concerning. Everything about you is attractive, even when you're 8 months pregnant and plotting to hunt human traffickers. Emma leaned into his warmth, feeling their daughter kick against her ribs as if responding to her father's voice. Soon they would be a family of 3, raising a child who would never know the fear and uncertainty that had shaped both their lives. Marcus, thank you. For what? Emma thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The rain-soaked night when he'd rescued her from Robert's men, the trust that had grown between them despite every reason for suspicion, the love that had survived revelations that should have destroyed them. For seeing me, she said finally. The real me, underneath all the damage and secrets. For believing I was worth saving. Marcus tilted her chin up, so she had to meet his eyes. Emma Thompson, you saved yourself long before I came along. I just had the privilege of witnessing it. Outside, Charleston's church bells began to chime the hour, their bronze voices carrying across the city like a benediction. Marcus and Emma Thompson stood together in their foundation's headquarters, surrounded by the work that had grown from their pain, preparing to welcome a daughter who would inherit not trauma and secrets, but love and the knowledge that justice was always possible. Some stories begin with tragedy, but the best ones end with hope.